Hello, hope you're doing well today. So, there is a game in early access called New Arcane. As we talk about this game today, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll know whether you're interested in it or not, keep in mind it is in early access. A lot more is going to be added to the game. The game could be completely revamped and changed, and some of the negatives I go over in this video may be changed up and become positives by the end of by the time the game is released. But what is New Arcane though? Because it's in early access, so a lot of you may not even heard of it. It is kind of a niche game, very niche game, really. It's a top-down point-and-click game. I know, right? If you're like me, that's not your thing. You point and click, nah. I want to be able to control with AWS, or I want to be able to walk. I don't care if it's top-down or not. I want to be able to walk myself. I don't know why. Point and click works just as well. So, and I was surprised as I started playing this that point and click wasn't too bad. I can move my camera around, so that was nice. Now it is an interesting RPG, and so therefore it has the classical turn-based combat. It doesn't whisk you away into a new combat zone, kind of like some other RPGs do. Instead, the combat just kind of starts where you're at, and interactions happen, and it's kind of neat because some bystanders can suddenly join in, or you know. So you don't, or maybe they'll come help you, maybe they won't, maybe they'll come attack you. So it adds a new, kind of an interesting dynamic to the combat. It's as an RPG, it's a very story-based game, and the idea behind this game is basically there's magic and there's technology, and the two don't get along, and you kind of got to pick. When you pick your class at the beginning, you're kind of deciding whether or not you're going to be somebody that supports technology or somebody that supports magic. I don't know if you've ever heard of a game called Arcanum. It has this game seems kind of like a tribute to Arcanum, like a Birthchild or something. Very, very heavily based off of Arcanum, basically. So let's talk about the art of the game. How is the art in New Arcane? Well, it's stylized, right? And some people hear stylized and they may think Borderlands 2 or something like that. That's very cel-shaded or cartoonish, or that's not what stylized means in the game development world. It means it's kind of their own style. Their characters match their environment, match their armor, match their clothing, their other objects in the game. Everything matches. Everything fits together. It's an art style that's not too much like something else. They didn't. So like a game's built in Unreal Engine oftentimes all look alike because they just let the Unreal Engine do the graphics for them. So this isn't like that. So the art in this kind of stands out. And while it's not realistic, it is nice. In my opinion, no game needs to have realistic art. I don't feel like having somebody that looks like a real person or a tree that looks like a real tree really makes a game. For me, it's more about the gameplay. So as far as the art goes, everything matches well, works well, and is decently designed. And nothing really feels out of place, and it kind of immerses you into this world. New Arcane allows you to create a character. So it has character creation, right? You can go in and you can add a hairstyle. You can change your face up a little bit. You have some minor creation choices for your character. At the beginning, I'm sure they're going to add more. This is an early access, right? They just needed something to test out the mechanics work, and then later they can just add in more styles, and that won't change the mechanics at all. Yeah. So right now they just have a few base designs that you can apply for customization, but it's nice to be able to customize your character, right? Alright, so once you've designed your character, then you get to choose a class. There's several classes in the game right now. They already have articles out talking about how they're adding more classes. They have several races you can choose from now, but they're going to be adding even more races. So yeah, this is a fantasy world. We have dwarves, elves, giants, and humans, right? So they're going to be adding races that you can choose from. And then of course you have a stats and the skill section where you can assign points based on what you want to do. So if you enjoy customization, we have a lot of that in this game already. It's an early access, and it's just going to become more robust as it continues to be developed. Right, but then you jump into the game, and they do something interesting here. won't want to spoil too much, because I know this is a review, so some stuff may get spoiled, but I try not to spoil too much in my reviews, and I'll try to show only early gameplay in my reviews, just for that reason alone. Early gameplay has probably been seen in trailers and everything like that, so I figure, hey, it's better, you know, it's something, I have to show something, right? But the game starts you out in the future, and you play for a short period in the future, and then you jump into a cutscene where you're having to answer questions. I don't want to say much more than that, but but these are questions you don't actually have, your character apparently has knowledge of, but you don't. So it's interesting. And then you jump into the game, and then it goes past that, and then you're back in time before any of the stuff you just witnessed actually happens. And so now you have to play through the game and get and so you know some of the, so now you kind of are armed with a little bit of knowledge of what's to come in the future and how you might be able to react to those situations now. But the story kind of locks you into a type of character. And for me, this is kind of a negative. Especially since I got to create my character, I don't get a whole lot of choices of how my character is going to react in certain situations. There are situations where there are some interactions in here where you can choose certain situations, but the main story seems to be kind of stuck on a certain path. The game, you basically are playing a kind of a mafia-like character, gangster. So you make, I guess, what the developers think are gangster-like choices, and you're kind of forced into them on a lot of the main story parts. No matter what you choose, kind of ends up with the same results. There doesn't really seem to be a good and evil or neutral pathing you can kind of take, where so there's not a super complex system in place for your choices right now, even though it does seem like you have choices. And while that may seem like a negative, we had to think about this. When I enjoy Baldur's Gate 3. This is not a Baldur's Gate 3 review. Baldur's Gate 3 has choices like this, but a lot of those choices don't really have that different of outcomes. Maybe minor outcome differences. There are some choices in Baldur's Gate 3 that do have way different outcomes, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case in this game, especially as it gets more and more developed. But there are a lot of choices in Baldur's Gate 3 that seem like they're going to have different outcomes, but if you save and go back, save and go back, save and go back, you realize that they don't, and that you're kind of like always on the same path. So that's kind of what this does as well. It's not as, the choice system may not be quite as robust as Baldur's Gate 3, but it's robust enough if you enjoy playing a gangster. Right? So you can try and stay neutral. You can't really be good in this game. And good, that could be defined by the eye of the beholder, right? Following the laws doesn't necessarily make someone good, right? If the laws are bad. And the idea behind this game is you're against authority, right? You're against the authority, against the government that's out and about in this place. Or what about gameplay, right? We talked about it's turn-based combat and point-to-click to move around. Even though it's point-to-click to move around, it's done well. I've played some really rough point-to-click games. And then they have just turned me off from point-to-click games, and usually I was just like, I'm not even going to look at it if it's point-to-click. And if I'd known this was point-to-click, I probably wouldn't have gotten a copy of it. But I didn't know, so I did, and it's not bad. I would still prefer to be able to control my character with AWSD, but it's not bad. It doesn't take away from the game. And it has, like I said, it has an interesting combat system, whereas you're going through and you end up in a fight or starting a fight with something, it just happens in the place you're at. There's no loading into a battle zone or anything like that, so that's really cool. I'm sure that's become more and more standard with the games, but in RPGs, usually there's a load screen or something, and you go into a combat zone. The game does give you a lot of freedom of choices and stuff, so you can have you can go with several different types of weapons or spells. Even though you don't have a lot of choices, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of choices as you're playing through the story and interacting with people in the world. When it comes to your abilities in combat, you actually do have quite a few choices. So the combat in this game is on par and and good for what an RPG like this should have. I don't have any complaints with the combat system. It doesn't excel at anything above any other RPG, but how can you? Right? You have to create like some brand new mechanic or something that no one's seen before. And that's a tall order even for like a huge studio. And what this game does that's kind of interesting is how it handles ability checks. It's like when you first start playing, you look at it and you go, what? How? Why? No? This is backwards. So weird. But it actually works. It's kind of interesting. So you roll for everything in the game that has a check, right? You want to persuade someone into doing something. You want to intimidate someone. You want to find something. You want, whatever the check is, right? It's kind of like D&D, right? Whatever you're using a skill check for, you roll 2 10-sided die. All right, so the die make all the decisions on that kind of stuff in this game. Usually, when you roll dice for these kind of things, you have you have to hit a certain number. So if it's a challenge rating of like 25, then you would need to roll a 25 or better to succeed. Right, with a challenge rating of 10, you roll a 10 or better to succeed. That's not how this one works. This one is based on your skill. If you have only 5 points into, let's just say intimidate. You're trying to intimidate someone, but you only have 5 points into intimidate. You have to roll between a 1 and a 5 to succeed in intimidating. But you're rolling 2 10-sided dice. The chance of rolling a 1 to 5 is extremely low, right? And so it's kind of interesting. So, but let's say, okay, so you know you can't intimidate them, but you have a really good persuasion skill. Your persuasion's at like 60. All right, so you decide to persuade them instead of intimidating them. Well, to persuade them, you have to roll between a 1 and a 60 to succeed. If you roll higher than a 60, you fail. It takes a minute to wrap your head around it. It's kind of like reverse challenge rating. So basically improving your skills improves your chances of succeeding. You don't have to meet a certain number. You just have, it's interesting. And I don't know if other games have done that before or not. I've not ever seen it before. So I just thought it was kind of interesting how it's kind of like reverse challenge rating, right? And speaking of which, remember we said this game has a lot of similarities with Arcanum. If you've ever played Arcanum, let us know in the comments below. If you've not played Arcanum, let us know as well. So as I got into this game in the beginning, playing through it, the first 30 minutes in, I was just like skeptical of it. I was like, I'm not sure this is good. I'm super confused. Why can't I make good? Why can't I be a neutral? Usually my first playthrough, I try and be mostly neutral and helpful to people. And I was like having a hard time doing that. I was having to like go beat people. I was having to beat people up. Go do things for money. It just making these decisions that I wouldn't normally make on my first playthrough, only if I was playing kind of a more evil character. And I was thrown by this at first, and was having a hard time getting into the game. And then I was like, I met a character in the game and talked to them and realized, oh, I'm supposed to be. My character is supposed to be working with this basically mafia, and I guess I'm some kind of gangster mafia person. I was like, so if I embrace that, so I just embraced it and went with it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is getting better. All right, and then as you go through, there's lots of interesting characters, lots of interesting events that can happen. There's a lot of little hidden things in the game that you won't even know about if you don't just explore and go find them. So they add a lot of little things in there like that, which is really nice. And seeing this, and this is still in early access, right? So I'm only imagining it's going to improve and get better. Now, I don't know if this is a game you want to keep your eye on. You might want to jump into early access while it's still got the early access pricing and go ahead and get the game if it's something it's something you're not interested in at all. This is not your style of game, that's cool too. You know, I would recommend at least keeping an eye on the game. It's hard to jump into a game with early access sometimes because you don't know if it's ever going to be completed and if they're ever actually going to, you know, go through with improving on it. It may be what you see is what you get. And so new Arcane is in early access, and so it's definitely not a full game yet. It's missing a whole lot of stuff that would make it a full game. So we have to take that into consideration, and will they ever complete it? We don't know. You know, if they don't get enough support for it, they may not be able to afford to complete it. Hopefully that doesn't happen here, because this game has a lot of potential to become something really amazing. In its current state, I would probably have to give it a 6 out of 10 stars in its current state. As it improves and it comes out, we may be able to up those stars. Maybe it'll go down. You know, maybe it won't. Maybe they won't improve on it. It's highly unlikely, but you never know. But if you are interested in at least keep it following the game, add it to your wish list, hop into their Discord, talk with them, watch videos on it. If you are interested in seeing the gameplay, let me know in the comments below that you want to see a Let's Play series on this, and I'll put one out. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. Have an awesome day.